Hi, and welcome to A Heart to Heart. I am Nicola of Conscious Living Project. And when we do these interviews, it's really our intention to bring a lens of love and compassion to all areas of life, even those ones that are challenging, and perhaps especially those ones that are challenging. So I'm really honoured today to bring on a special guest to dive into something that is really quite divisive at the moment, and a real beautiful opportunity for us to come into community again, and that is masculinity. So I would love to tell you a little bit about Michael. Michael is the founder of HuManity.media, an online resource for men and anyone that knows one. Michael is a passionate, heart-centered entrepreneur committed to a world where redefining what it means to be a man today and in the future. So Michael is experienced in such things as the new way of business, heart-centered creativity, channeling entities, and topics such as sacred sexuality, divine union, inner child work, and opening our hearts to receive divine prosperity. He also co-facilitates sacred cacao ceremonies and leads both online and in-person conscious work with and for men. So thank you so much for your time today, Michael. I'm really excited to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me. That's the first time I've ever actually heard someone read that back to me. And it was super fun. I was like, wow, it actually sounds really nice. I channeled it out and wrote it, and that was kind of the last thing, but yeah, so thank you. That was a receiving in and of itself. It was super special.
Yeah, great. I'm so glad. We met a year ago, which was funny. We just talked offline before. It was when I was actually interviewing Mackenzie, who is Michael's partner, and I really encourage you to check out her work and that interview, because she has so much divine wisdom to offer, again, in all areas of life. And to me, it's no mistake that you guys are a couple, of course.
Lucky me.
Right. And since that time, I've come to see you both online and in person as what is possible. One, in relationship, because you guys share your relationship so openly and so beautifully. But when men have their hearts open. And so it really made sense to me. The team and I have felt really called to engage in this debate, which has been really fiery actually lately. I'm not sure that debate is a fair term, but there's been a lot of discussion around toxic masculinity, and I'd prefer to just get rid of that word, toxic. We have made a commitment not to use that word because it's so inflammatory, and I think it's not a great opening to the discussion. And so it really made sense to me to explore this with you because of the work that you're doing, and that the person that you are and the ways that I've seen you interact with other people is very encouraging to me about the future. So yeah, thank you. I might just ask you to start by sharing what it is that you've been observing and feeling, and where your intuition has been guiding you in this conscious work with men, and why now?
Yeah, well, to answer the second question first, why now is because that's when I was guided to. So I actually went through a pretty extensive healing process, a pretty extensive opening process, heart opening process that looked like 1.5 to almost 2 years of just being still and not really being motivated to create anything, which was incredibly frustrating for me. During that time, my full-time job was to nurture myself and to heal old patterns, to heal old pains, old wounds in myself, to actually be the type of embodiment for holding a container such as humanity, holding a container for. So just to say that, because I think a lot of times we jump into this healer role before we've actually embodied the lessons that are being presented to us through our life experience. So I was kind of forced, pigeonholed, to stay in one spot and just heal and learn and embody and practice. And I'm so grateful for that now, because when HuManity came, it was like, boom, here we go. The divine masculine is coming online, and It's happening right now. So it was like a creative force that pressed on me so hard, I could not do something with it. Like if I would have avoided it, I probably would have been put in a coma or something. That would have been the only way around. But instead, I just started creating nonstop and really giving him freedom to openly use me as a channel. And why now is really because this is like the time that we've all been waiting for, talking about, posting about, chatting about, reflecting about, contemplating about. It's happening now, these balancing of the energies within us. We're actually doing a lot of reconciling on behalf of the collective of humanity through our own work with ourselves, but also through our divine unions and within sacred coupleship. So much of this healing is going on. So it's really like, yeah, it's so big. Why now is like, it's because that's when it was meant to be, and some of us are awake and aware of that. And so we're participating consciously, and other people aren't so aware of it quite yet. So they're participating unconsciously, but everyone's participating.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So what is your vision, or what vision are you casting for men through HuManity Media?
The vision really is for men to have a platform to grow in all the ways that they genuinely desire to. And my approach is a little bit different, or what I've been guided to is a little bit different, in that I'm really not out to teach men how to be masculine. Like, I'm not out to use archetypes. I'm not out to have a structure. I'm not out to say this is what being a man is. So now let's practice embodying all of these principles, all of these archetypes. I'm really just having, my desire is for men to sit, be still with themselves, connect with their higher selves, connect with their spirit, their soul, and to get the direct guidance on what the divine masculine expression looks like for them. Because we're all so unique.
Yeah.
Everybody is so unique. We were born into this world one of a kind. What makes us think that our expression of both the divine feminine and the divine masculine would be any different? So it's really about coming home to our center to discover what that is for ourselves, as opposed to try to fit our square peg into a circular hole, instead of trying to fit into something that already exists. So something inside of that I'm really passionate about is giving men permission to fully embody their divine feminine, to fully embody and allow their emotional body, to be freely in touch with their body and what their body is feeling at any moment, to just allow themselves the type of compassion that no matter what I'm feeling right now, no matter how I was impacted by something that had happened outside of me, I'm going to honor myself and allowing myself to feel exactly how I feel right now. And that might look like tears coming out of my face in the midst of a group of people. But I respect myself enough. I love myself enough. I'm protecting and loving the innocence in me enough to allow that expression, rather than storing, stuffing, and having it show up later as resentment and anger and frustration and those types of things. So my personal belief is that men, we actually embody our true masculinity, our true divine masculine, through first embodying our divine feminine. Because that's where the imbalance is. The imbalance is not in really learning how to embody the divine masculine. It's learning where we're not allowing and not honoring our feminine expression. And when we do, our masculinity just shows up naturally.
Okay, that's really interesting. I hadn't thought of it that way before. Can you elaborate? Perhaps some of these terms are new for people. When you say the divine masculine or the divine feminine, what does it mean to you?
Yeah, so they're just energies, really. They're names for energies that exist within our body. And so we have both men and women in our external world, but we have both masculine and feminine inside of each one of us as an individual. So I could look at you and say you're feminine. I could look at me and say I'm masculine, but I can also look at me and say there's many parts of me that are feminine and many parts of me that are masculine.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's just a blending of those energies within us, and they just stand for different things. So
Yeah.
the divine masculine is the space holder. He's the eye of the storm. He's the calm, piercing presence, no matter what's happening in the world around him. He is the space that pulls for the chaos outside of him to come in closer to him and find stillness and find clarity and find peace. He's divine will, divine right action, inspired action, the action that's going to make the most difference rather than like spreading paint against the wall and hoping that it's going to hit. And then the divine feminine is really, it's not all soft like people might think. It's fierce compassion. It's unconditional love. It's chaotic in the sense that it's beyond the mind.
Yeah.
It's intuition and understanding from the body and beyond. It's not something the mind can capture and really rationalize. So it can seem chaotic to the mind, but really it's this intense creative process where, in that womb space, things are literally being immaculately conceived, ideas, businesses, entities, and then they're being birthed out into the world. And then the divine feminine is nurturing what's birthed out into the world, while the divine masculine is protecting it.
Mm-hmm. That's
So
so
those are
beautiful.
some things. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. It's so beautiful to hear you say that. And it's really like I feel a sense of comfort come over me when you say that. Like to think of the divine masculine as a space holder, like a safety, a place of safety for women's intuition and creativity. And that's not something I feel on a regular basis. So it's a beautiful expression of that. I'd like to ask you why is all of this important? So the space that you want to create for men to really connect with themselves and honor themselves, why does that matter?
Yeah, that's a really big question, because it matters, because if you just look at the world that we have today, so much of the shadow, or what you could call the quote unquote bad things that we see, is because of the way that we've suppressed our feminine, all of our feminine. So it's feminine suppression that we see out in the world. There's a lack of heart in business. There's a lack of heart in enterprise. There's a lack of heart in our economy. There's a lack of heart in our relationships. So that's all very catastrophic and damaging. And so it's created this world where there is deep rooted, it's not, it's like inauthenticity and superficiality, because there's just no awareness of how much suppression is actually going on, because it's been happening for so long and it's so common now that we all just accept it as that's just the way life is. So it's been an intense lack of heart, and you see it in our world, all over the world. You see it in populations in the United States. You see it in populations in third world countries where, there's great separation between wealth and poverty. There's also great separation between equal opportunities between races. There's racism, there's war, there is sex trafficking, there is defiling of the innocent. There is all of these things that are still in existence in the world, that are because we haven't fully yet as a collective accessed our heart space enough to feel how damaging that actually is, to feel our connection to every human being on the planet, and to feel what we're actually doing to other people. Because if we did, one, we'd probably be in a healing crisis for a long time, and it would be extremely painful. And for two, then we'd actually have to be responsible for our actions on such a big scale, which is scary.
It's terrifying.
To take on that kind of responsibility. Even to take on that, what I do in solitude when no one else is looking actually impacts the entire planet. But that's the truth.
Yeah. It's big. It's really big when you put it like that. Um, so, okay, can you link this with, if we've talked about why it's important, so let's talk about maybe why this suppression of the feminine, as you put it, is such a big issue for men. So we know that, just even in my own experience, men have a lot of trouble expressing their emotions. So why is that?
Sure. I would say for this lifetime and in our lives now, it's because of our early conditioning. So between the ages of 1 and 8, what was modeled to us was stoicism and strength, and not talking about your emotions, not sharing about your emotions, just basically being strong and keep going. You be accomplished, and you just, no matter what, um, yeah, keep driving, keep going ahead. So yeah, through our parents, what was modeled back to us were those things rather than sensitivity, compassion. And so we just learn vicariously through observing our environment that that's how it's meant to be, or that's how it is in the world. So we took that on. And then of course, a lot of people who were born in our generation were actually quite sensitive. Like I came in as a child and I was extremely emotionally aware of my environment. But I always thought that I was the crazy one, or that something was wrong with me because I was feeling so much, and what I perceived was others feeling so little. And so that is trauma. Any way you spin it, trauma doesn't have to be these big events that happen. Trauma can be these small things where your environment is telling you that you're not safe to be who you are, so you have to be what you're observing. And so then our life becomes about trying to be something that we're not. And beyond that, before, we all come into very specific families. And so we've got our genetics that are involved. We've got maternal and paternal genetics that are part of our lineage that we're literally undoing through our lives. So the healing that we do now is not just for us.
Yeah.
It's actually for us and for generations that have come before us, because in order for them to model what they did for us, they had to have something modeled to them that said that was the right way to do it. So it goes back. That's all I'm saying. It's part of history, but it's also for future generations too, for the ones that will come after us. So it's big. And yeah, what's interesting is as men, as we age, we actually take on our conditionings, or what it means to be a man, that's given back to us from our external environments, and we then impress them and force them on ourselves. So if my feelings get hurt, I innately will literally suppress my emotions down, because I've learned that it's weak to be vulnerable. It's weak to express. It's weak to be seen in your sadness or in your hurt. So my physical body has literally been trained to shut that down as soon as it happens. So you have now a bunch of boys who grew into men who haven't evolved out of yet that pattern of suppressing emotions. It's not safe to express. Their physical bodies still don't feel safe to express. It's never been modeled back to them by another man, maybe not even another woman. So it just goes on and on like that. It gets perpetuated in that way.
Yeah. In one of your podcasts, you talked about that physical response and a leaning back. And I'm assuming you meant it's like a physical leaning back away from
Absolutely.
emotion or things, something that was going to cause you to feel hurt or potential to feel hurt. Can you describe that a little bit more, and maybe how that manifests?
Yeah, well, by the time you're an adult man, you've got a lot inside of your body that you haven't expressed. A lot, so much, So by the time it wants to come out, you don't even know what it is, It's just emotion now. So, yeah, when it's there, the impulse, or when the external environment, when I'm with my beloved, like say Mackenzie is expressing her emotions to me, and if any part of that is threatening to me in the sense that it's causing it to rise in me, I'm physically leaning away because I'm losing control. It's all like I've been controlling my emotions for so long. I've been suppressing my emotions for so long. If anything externally is making me feel like I'm losing control and now it's rising up within me, then I'm leaning away because I'm a no to that. I'm not going there. So it is a physical response, and it's traumatic for your partner when you're on the receiving end of it because it just looks like you don't give a shit, which is not necessarily true. There's just so much already going on. I can't actually respond to what's happening here because I'm not responding internally to what's happening here. I'm responding internally to 30 years of unprocessed emotion. So for me, when Mackenzie would start to express herself, and if she ever said something like, I feel like you, I just feel like you, I was like, nope, that's projection, not my thing.
Right.
Yep, that's for you to figure out. So yeah, I'll be here and I'll listen, but ultimately it's going to come down to something that you choose to do different or see differently, you know. But now it's like, okay, how can I serve? Leaning in, like, okay, what guidances am I getting in this moment? Leaning in and just physically having my body feel like it's participating energetically to allow for that emotion, whatever's there for me, just to continue to surface, just to continue to show up. But of course, that's come over like a couple of years of communication and learning how to do this together. So
yeah, and I think that is something I'd like to know more about, because as women, and how do we support men to do this? And that's such a big question, because one, we need to have a level of awareness about ourselves as well, but also, you know, someone that has done 2 or 3 years of this kind of heart opening work, as you call it, versus someone who has never had exposure or never had those role models to mirror back that it is okay to express emotion. It's a completely different ball game, so to speak. And I will share that coming up for me is a bit of resentment that we right now are having this conversation about how can women support men, when for a very long time nobody was talking about how can men support women. So you know, I'm going to share that. That's what I'm feeling. But I'm really committed to this work, because when I think about boys and them suppressing their emotion, like, that's very easy for me to think about. I want to nourish and support them and give them space to be really open. When I think about particular men that have done very hurtful things, it's harder, obviously.
I get it.
But yeah, what can we do as women? What would be desired?
Well, first and foremost, I just want to honor you and every other woman that's going to get on this podcast, because I get that it's been a long, lonely, and tough road. And I get that you've been holding yourself for longer than you probably cared to. And I also get why you'd be resentful and angry. And you have every right to be. And so does any other woman that gets on this call or watches this podcast. You have every right to be. So I think if there's anything you can do for us, it's to honor your own emotions. It's to honor your own life experience. It's to honor your own truth. It's to honor your wisdom within your own body more than ever before. That's it. And through doing that, you will mirror back to all of us what that actually looks like, so we can do the same for ourselves.
It's really easy then.
I mean,
No, I
on
mean,
paper.
if the best way forward is for us to be really truthful and authentic with ourselves and listen to that wisdom that's trying to come through, then it feels quite natural.
100%. And there is going to be and is already happening a reconciliation period.
Mm,
between the masculine and feminine. And that's going to play out in our relationships and between men and women, and even between same-sex relationships, people that are playing different roles.
mm,
But it's also going to play out internally. So there is being cultivated now a deep reverence and respect for the divine feminine, for the feminine within all of us, and also bowing in reverence to its wisdom and to the suppression that has happened for so long. So we are going to have to reconcile that. There is no way around it.
mm. Yeah.
And how I imagine that going is just honoring what's there, expressing what's there, just like you did now, and
Mm,
allowing yourself to be caught and heard and seen and validated. And as we do that with each other, the masculine doing that as well, because there's going to be a lot of men coming out that are very frustrated and angry, and
mm.
probably confused too with why they're so frustrated and angry and why there's so much emotion in their body, because that was me for a few years.
Yeah.
I did not understand my anger,
Mm,
and it always stemmed from frustration, confusion, and what felt like overwhelm. But when you're playing this game, you realize it's not all yours.
mm.
Your resentment is not all yours. You're actually taking a slice of the collective resentment of women
Mm-hmm.
because of what they've experienced and felt. And
Yeah.
my anger is also a collective slice of the anger of all the men that have come before me and that are still on the planet now. But that gives you a new perspective on being aware and being sensitive to that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'm feeling a lot of anger right now. I know this is not all mine. And the best thing I could do for myself and the entire planet right now is just have compassion and be tender and self-soothe and be understanding that my anger is actually vulnerability. It's actually the child within me crying out for help, crying out for my attention now, to reparent him in the way he always wanted to be parented and loved when he was a
Mm-hmm.
little boy.
Yeah. And it's
So
funny. Sorry.
no, the last thing I want to say is just for women in particular to be more powerfully than ever in your wisdom. Just be so powerfully in your wisdom, in your truth, in your knowing that there is no choice but for men to either rise
Mm.
and rise powerfully forever, or whatever that is.
All the opposite of that.
Yeah, I don't know where that leads, but
Yeah.
I just know it's not going with us, and I
Mm-hmm.
mean that with love.
Absolutely. When you say that there's a suppression of the feminine, I mean, and that's felt by both men and women, right? We've come through ages where the masculine, a dominant masculine, has been, or a fear-based masculine. I don't know what use words to describe that, but has been really dominant in building the infrastructure that we have today, the way that our society runs. And in that time, the feminine was absolutely diminished. So now it's really that we are connected on that point, because we both want the feminine to rise in us, and for
Totally.
women, like you're saying, to really recognize that intuition and that womb wisdom, whatever you call it, that feels so truthful to you. So we want to trust that, and for men to lean into that as well. So we're all on the same team. We're all trying
Yeah.
to bring in more of the feminine and to honor that.
Well, when you get on the other side of that, that's what's available. So I used to be so afraid of emotions and feminine expression because I always thought it was blaming me, and it
Mm,
seemed like something that was just out of my control and wild and crazy, and I didn't get it. My mind couldn't understand it. But now having gone through the journey that I've gone on, I see feminine expression and feminine emotion as pure wisdom. When my beloved is upset, or when it doesn't even have to be upset, when anything is coming through her and it feels out of the ordinary or not how she normally is, I'm like listening intently,
mm,
because yeah, just the way the feminine body was designed, it actually holds so much wisdom through emotional expression, through feeling, through being connected to everything around you, around us. So rather than suppressing it, putting it in a corner, trying to control it and saying that's bad and shaming it, the reason I'm leaning in now is because I'm moving forward to, one, embrace, love, soothe, soften, because women too have all the same self-judgments when the emotions rise. You guys beat yourselves up just as much as we do.
Yeah.
You know, so I'm stepping in now to soothe, to love, to express compassion, to express grace, like we were talking about before we got on, to allow for the nervous system to calm enough for the wisdom to rise. The true wisdom that's there, that's always there anytime there's an emotional expression. So.
Yeah. That's so beautiful. It feels probably like a very far away place for a lot of people to come to that. Do you want to say something?
I laugh. Well, I just laugh because I just imagine myself like literally running from the hills, like running for the hills as soon as anything emotional came up. I was like, no, you know?
Yeah.
And then I just got the image of like me running towards it. Like, yes, I'm like lit up about it, you know, which is weird. I get it. It's weird.
Yeah.
But it's like, that's what's on the other side of our fear of feminine expression, is like this field of expansiveness where, yeah, we just get to play and learning so much. You know, there's just so much wisdom, so many lessons, so many teachings that are coming through in that space. There's so much to learn. And so if you can like get across that there's actually a beautiful gift waiting for you on the other side, then of course you'd run towards that, you know?
Yeah. So speaking of this running for the hills, I had a friend share with me last year a few comments about that he was worried to be too sensitive because he felt that it would flood him. He cares about the world, but there are so many bad things happening in that if he was to let those feelings come up or in, he would be paralyzed by that. And so it would be much easier to avoid feeling helpless or hurt. It'd be easier to be a comedian or a cynic or just to close the door.
Yeah.
Can you speak to that a little bit? I know that would resonate with things you've talked about before.
Yeah, it's a legitimate fear. I mean, nobody wants to be truly heartbroken. And anybody who's felt what that feels like knows that they don't like to feel that way.
Yeah.
But that's the kind of willingness you have to have if you're going to play this game. You have to have and allow your heart to be broken, because it's in that heartbreak, it's in that extreme sorrow that we actually feel our connection to everyone and everything.
Yes.
We feel and can access the pain of our brothers and sisters on the planet. So, of course, we'd be more caring. Of course, we'd be more sensitive. Of course, we'd be more compassionate, because like what's coming through our heart is now coming. We know what's coming up for other people because it's right here. You don't have to like search for it or have conversations about it. You just have to tap in here and allow yourself to feel it. And you know exactly what's happening in the world around you. So yeah, I get that it's scary and you feel like you might be paralyzed, but you won't be. The reality is you're going to feel deep sorrow and pain for as long as it's there for you to, which is not going to be that long in comparison to how long your life is.
Yeah.
And then you're going to rise out of that feeling so much lighter, having so much clarity on your purpose, what you're here for, but also being so connected to the people in your life.
Yeah. So let's say somebody has that kind of logical wisdom. They're like, okay, yeah, I know it would be good for me. And that's what this friend said to me. He said, I don't really want to be like this, but I'm still afraid.
Yeah.
What do you think is the turning point or a tiny window or entry where maybe that needle on fear can be shifted just ever so slightly?
Sure.
I don't know. Yeah.
Well, there's a couple things. The physical body has to feel safe. So we all grew up not feeling safe to express our emotions. So that response is still here in our body. So any way we can have our physical body feel safe, whether it's breathing. Okay, I'm feeling a lot right now. Whether it's however you like receive love. If you receive love through physical touch, words of affirmation, you can have your beloved, your partner, the people in your life reflect that back to you. And that's an indication to you and to your body that you actually are safe to go there. You actually are safe to express.
Mm-hmm.
And two, there has to be a real willingness and a desire. Like you can't
Yeah.
just be playing around in this game and wanting to embody your masculinity because you want women to be attracted to you and you want to post like really cool pictures of you doing manly poses on the internet and have a bunch of people like it. Like that's
Right.
not the game. You have to really desire to go there, to open your heart, no matter how scared you are.
Mm.
But ultimately, that gets positively reinforced over time. One, for yourself, because you start to relieve yourself of all the emotion that's stored in your body, so you start to feel lighter. Your innocence
Mm.
naturally rises to the surface. You know, your innocence is like has all your baggage stacked on top of it. So that's why people are so serious, you know, because their innocence is so stuffed down and stuck so deep inside them because of all the baggage that's there. All the unexpressed emotions is like holding their innocence and therefore their playfulness down. So
Mm.
you'll see, like, as you allow yourself to express and relieve yourself of past emotional pains and trauma, which is sometimes can be a really big deal, you'll become naturally more playful and lighter.
Yeah,
So
that
that's
feels so
one
good.
positive reinforcement. And you'll also see that the women in your life, especially your beloved, is actually extremely attracted to you when you do that. It's
Mm.
very sexy to be genuinely and authentically vulnerable.
Mm.
It's very attractive and it creates the deepest intimacy. I mean,
Yeah.
you're sharing the rawest and realest parts of you as it's happening. What is more sexy than that? Like, what causes your heart to open in the moment more than that? You know, so it creates deep intimacy, and everybody's craving that. Men are certainly craving that more than ever.
Yeah.
They might not tell you that, but they are.
Mm.
And that's like, you know, that's the juice of life. That's what makes it so fulfilling. And it never gets old. It's not like
Yeah.
drugs where you have to do more over time to reach the same highs. Every time you open up your heart and you express yourself vulnerably, it's like, oh my God, I don't know why I have so much resistance to that. That is so awesome. I feel amazing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Happens every single time. I swear. I don't know why we're not all like smacking ourselves in the head saying, why do we resist that so much? Why do we resist that so much? You know?
Yeah, I resonate with the fact that how easy it is to forget and to then come back into intimacy again and be like, oh, duh, like, you know, this feels so good. And this is where I feel really connected to myself and, you know, to a partner. But yeah, for whatever reason, we slip out of that knowing or that remembering quite easily.
It's just our mind. Our minds attack our emotional body so much all the time.
Mm, mm,
So something happens. A lot of times it's around our innocence. It's our inner child. It's the children within us, the 5, 6, 7, 8-year-old that's still living inside of us. And everybody has that, no matter what age that you are.
mm,
It's typically the innocence inside of us that gets hurt. And in the moment, our mind has something to say about expressing what's actually there for us.
mm.
It really just hurt my feelings when you said blank, and then the feeling is there. But instead, it's like, don't say that. No, that's going to be weird. But also, your heart's hurt, so you went, "Ooh," and you just closed it a little bit. So there's an energetic dynamic that just happened between you and your beloved. Now there's like this awkwardness in the space, but you're not going to say anything because you're holding tight to your story that you didn't get hurt. But
Yeah.
she can feel that something's going on with you because she is in her divine feminine body. So she's feeling everything, whether you like it or not. And sometimes you really don't like that because she feels things before you do. And that's frustrating for you.
Yeah, sure.
She can tell you how you're feeling before you can, you know? So there's this whole weird dynamic that happens. And then that goes on over time, and days, maybe even weeks go by until little things add up. And then boom,
Mm,
the expression comes out, the emotion actually comes out, but it comes out as anger instead of what it was initially, which was just genuinely your inner child was hurt by something because
yeah.
you just wanted to have fun with your beloved, and something she said made him feel that she didn't want to do that or something, or that you weren't
Yeah.
valued and loved.
Yeah.
You know, it starts out as something so simple, but that's where our awareness has to expand as
Mm.
both men and women, but especially as men, to be able to already have that kind of relationship with the child inside of us, to be able to notice it as it's happening and then communicate that and reveal it
Mm.
and just be open and honest about it.
Yeah. Can we talk about anger? I
Mm-hmm.
really, I liked the comments that the discussion that you and Mac had about that, and that from the outside looking in, if women are being defensive, and I can speak from my own experience, when a partner in the past has been angry, I've felt really hurt, and I've wanted to judge him, and something is wrong with him, and he can't express his emotions, in a fair, reasonable way, and I don't deserve that. But
Yeah.
you kind of shed a different light on that. Yeah, can you do that for us?
Absolutely. Yeah. So anger is never what I call a primary emotion. So it's always a mask or a disguise for something else. It's typically a disguise or a mask for hurt.
Mm.
So you get hurt, and then the anger is not so much, it's actually not at all at the person that you think hurt you. Where the anger comes from is that you're actually so frustrated with yourself
Mm.
that you're dishonoring yourself by not allowing your emotional body to express itself, that's incredibly frustrating.
Mm.
You're in this like internal combustive process because all of this energy is being pressed down into itself and like bashed against itself and each other inside of your body, and there's fires going off everywhere. So yeah, true anger is really, it's a frustration with self. And what I've noticed for myself is when my mind comes in and tries to control my emotions,
Mm.
things become very confusing because now we have a wounded masculine dynamic called the mind trying to suppress the divine feminine body expression.
Mm.
And you have this battle that's going on amongst yourself,
Yeah.
but then you have this person outside of you called your lover, your best friend, your parents that are trying to interact with you as well. So you're
Yeah,
like,
it's a lot.
you go away, like, and we don't even have the awareness of the words to communicate that yet. So it's incredibly complex, but anger is never anger. It
Mm.
is actually, and I think this is really powerful for both women and men, because a lot of men have other angry men in their lives. If you can see anger as an actual vulnerability, if you can see anger as actually a cry for help, anger is really a man saying, I am so frustrated and confused with what's happening inside of me that I need grace, I need compassion, I
Mm.
need love, I need you to help me. And I'm not saying go and rescue people. I'm not saying take on other people's suffering or take on their happiness. I'm just saying if you're somebody that's awake and aware and can be present to the fact that somebody's crying out for help, you
Mm.
can. If you have the capacity to soothe somebody and love them in the moment, why wouldn't you?
Mm.
And my anger in a huge way got resolved when I was screaming at Mackenzie
Mm.
at the top of my lungs. I don't remember what it was that hurt me so much, but it got to the point where it was so heated that I was just screaming right at her.
Mm.
And in that moment, she paused and like she had this profound awareness that came over, and she just started crying. And of course, when she started crying, it disarmed me immediately and brought me back to my heart. And she said, I'll never again see your anger as anything other than vulnerability.
Mm.
And I was just like, oh my God. If somebody is going to reflect that back to me, if my beloved is going to be like that courageous and that bold to reflect that back to me, then I can sure as hell get it for myself. And like I said before, a lot of the anger that's actually passing through men is passing through extremely sensitive men.
Yeah.
There's a lot of really sensitive men in the world. And I just last year, no, it was in 2017 when we first went to Australia. I lost my cousin,
Mm.
a beautiful young man, to heroin overdose.
Sorry.
And if you'd have met him, you'd have looked at him and said, wow, that is such an incredible and beautiful soul.
Mm.
Like he is just so, he's shining, he's so sweet. You can feel his heart. But a lot of men like that actually have those big hearts are extremely sensitive. And therefore they're extremely sensitive to what's happening collectively.
Yeah.
And part of their purpose for being here is actually taking the karma of the collective, allowing it to pass through them. It doesn't have to be projected out as anger, but it's for us to feel. I am meant to feel that anger, and I'm meant to bring love to it. Because any shadow is really just an aspect of ourself that's asking to be loved.
Mm.
So if this anger is coming through me, it's inside of me, it may not be mine, at least fully or completely, or maybe not at all. But you know what? It's here, and it's asking for my love right now.
Mm.
I'm the one to heal this. And yeah, that's just it. It's actually a lot of times the most angry men are the ones that were the most sensitive.
Yeah. So in a way, they are very porous, and perceiving a lot of the stuff that's going on around them, but are
Yeah,
perhaps
and
not able to integrate that well.
totally, and still
Yeah.
have all of their conditioning and their wounds and their things that they're bringing with them from the past too, that
Mm.
they haven't given themselves permission to fully release, fully feel and bless and release.
Yeah. Mm. So your intention is around having an open heart and
Yeah, big time.
how can I think this is really for men and women. How can we go about opening our hearts?
Well, one, you can set the intention to,
Mm.
uh, and you can claim the genuine desire that's already there to do that. In fact, I was just talking to one of my good friends. I hadn't spoken to him about 2 years. We had a Zoom call today, but that's what the call was all about. Like your soul is calling to you to basically break your heart open, and your
Mm.
mind is trying to control the shit out of that right now. But yeah, so just to honor the process that's already there, that's asking to be felt, the opening that's already asking to be felt. And then, yeah, there's a ton of resources, books, the Gene Keys. I mean, what an incredible resource to go on a journey of opening your heart, especially in your most intimate relationships. Um, of course, there's plant medicines, incredible plant medicines. They are really, there's masculine and feminine plant medicines, but a lot of the
Mhm.
feminine plant medicines are really the embodiment of grace in a plant, which is kind of crazy. You know, it'd probably be hard to wrap your mind around that if you haven't experienced it, but
Mhm.
um, and especially even the most simple ones like cacao. I mean, cacao has been with me for literally every step of this journey, and cacao is a profound heart opener. So
Mm.
if you have the intention to open up your heart and that's genuine and real for you, sit in ceremony with cacao every day. And it's naturally going to help you access your emotional body, access your heart center, and start to see and feel into what's there.
Mm.
And you might cry spontaneously for what seems like no reason at all. And that's just the wisdom of this plant medicine communing with your body. You don't even need to do anything, just don't
Yeah.
stop it.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's so many resources. And I just, for me, I feel like setting the intention and claiming the actual desire is enough, because then the resources will show up.
Mm.
You'll call those resources in because you'll say that you're a match for them now. You're ready for those now. You're a yes to those. So please come.
Yeah. It's beautiful. So, yeah, I want to talk to you about the debate that's happening. Recently, there was an ad brought out by Gillette, and it was
Yeah.
really shifting these ideas about the best a man can be.
Mm-hmm.
And I was very moved when I saw that ad, and the girls in the team were as well, because we saw, I guess, a vision of the future, of men caring for themselves and the people around them.
Yeah.
But there was so much backlash to that ad. And to be honest, I had to go and look at some of those comments because I couldn't immediately think of how you could have a negative response to the ad. That, it felt very natural to me.
Yeah.
But when words like toxic masculinity are used, it becomes divisive, like I said at the beginning, and pretty explosive. Why do you think that is?
It's triggering toxic masculinity. And I'm not saying I'm for or against it. It's language, but the fact that two words put together side by side brings up so much for people, and in particular men, is just a reflection of how much is actually unresolved within us around that, how much we're still trying to defend and protect these parts of us that we've yet to access, the darkness that we've yet to go into to heal for ourselves. So I actually watched that video and I cried. And that's not to say like I'm better or worse than any other person. I was just so genuinely moved by it.
Yeah.
I thought something like this coming out on such a mass scale with such a huge corporation having such a large reach is evidence in both big business, but also just in the world in general, that the divine masculine is rising. Divine masculine is here. How could this not be evidence for that? And especially the piece where, the little boy was watching his dad break up a fight and was so moved and inspired by that. I'm like, fuck yeah.
Yeah.
I want to be a dad like that, and I want to see dads like that in the world. But it's just, it brings up so much because there's already so much, and if it's not toxic masculinity, it's going to be something else.
Right.
And that's actually a good thing. It's a good thing that there's things like this video and other resources like it that are actually triggering men in such a way. I know it's nasty. I know when it comes out, it's nasty, and you can see that and receive it, especially if it's you receiving it personally. You're going to be really hurt by it, of course. But it's actually good because it's reflecting back to us how much is still unresolved, how much work we still need to do.
Yeah.
And anytime something triggers you in that way, it's an opportunity to grow. Now, I'm not saying that they will take it on that way, but we can see it that way.
Yeah.
We can choose to see it that way. We can choose to love the unresolved parts of ourselves and therefore the unresolved parts of others. And we can choose to honor openly what it is for us and also allow it to be whatever it's going to be for anyone else.
Yeah.
And yeah, there's just this, look, if you really don't have anything to defend or anything that you're defending, you won't react or respond with defense. So if you see a man rising to the defense saying these words, toxic masculinity is wrong, then it's like, yeah, it's just they're trying to communicate something else that they're just not present to yet.
Sure. Yeah.
I don't know if that makes sense or.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. That's true for all of us when we get a really strong reaction to something.
100%. 100%. And yeah, there's this element of feeling blamed that men in particular, and even saying that, I can tell like people might not receive that well for me to say men in particular, but there's this element of blame that when we feel it has us immediately reject it. So if we feel blamed, we're rejecting that, because if we actually allow that in, it's going to hurt us. And we're not ready to be cracked open through our hurt yet in that way.
Yeah.
Or at least a lot of men aren't.
Yeah.
So.
And what about shame? Where do you think that comes in here?
Everywhere. Shame throughout the entire process from start to finish. I don't know. Shame is not something we're born with. It's something that's we inherit, something that's given to us.
Yeah.
Something we can convince ourselves of that we're bad or that we're somehow anything other than perfect, somehow anything other than divine, somehow anything other than sacred. So yeah, I mean, I don't even know what to say about that, because
Yeah.
it's so prevalent, and I think shame is something that I feel keeps us incredibly small for ourselves. So it's actually a maneuver that we use to keep us small, so that we don't have to show
Mm,
up as our fullest self in the world. So we don't actually have to embody the earth angel that we actually are, So
mm,
you go and shame is like, for me, when I think of shame, especially for men, I think of watching porn in silence, masturbating alone, and then showing up in the world as if that never happened. But really in your heart,
mm,
you were just doing all this shadow stuff in silence, and I know when I did that, I always shamed myself and I always beat myself up and I always said, this
mm.
is the last time. But that energy is then something that I'm carrying around with me. I'm exuding it into the world.
Yeah. I feel like shame is significant for all of us, and that yeah, it really does keep us small, and that shame can really take over your whole body if you can't become present to it. I mean, I know to me it feels like red hot starting in my stomach and really coming up right into my cheeks, and I can't
Mm,
bloody hide it from anyone either because it's
mm,
so visual. Brene Brown, such an amazing researcher into shame and vulnerability, she says the best way to combat shame is to be vulnerable, which is exactly what you do not want to do when you're in that shame
totally.
place.
Right.
How do you think we can, I feel like I know what you're going to say, but how can we encourage that vulnerability? Let's think about someone that is angry or isn't very tapped into their emotions, and you can sort of see that they are feeling some kind of shame. Like, how can we go about making it safe for them?
Yeah, I think it's so that there is a privilege in going first, and that's what I call people that are sensitive, is like the ones that are awakening first. And I'm not trying to say that in any egotistical kind of way. I'm just saying the true power in that is it only takes one person in any situation to make an extremely positive impact and therefore a difference. So if I'm awake and aware and I can see someone's truly in their pain body
Mm,
and in a place of true vulnerability, even if it's being expressed as anger, I mean, I'll just be straight up with you. I'm going to move closer to them. I'm going to lean into that. And I'm not going to be this and I'm saying me, but I'm talking for all of us. I'm not going to be a sacrificial lamb in any way where I will completely sacrifice myself in my life and allow myself to be abused and take on the
mm,
trauma of the world just to justify something. But I'm certainly going to move towards it because I know that I can hold that inside of my container. And I know that I can pull that closer to me and allow that person to sort themselves out. It's not my responsibility to sort them out. I don't have to.
mm,
They have their own soul. They have their own internal guidance system. They have their own wisdom. They have their own feminine body. They have it all already. I'm just going to pull them into this safe container where they start to feel safe enough to go there.
mm,
And so it's really up to us, the ones that are awake and aware, that are perceptive, that are empathic, that can feel the world around us, to at least initiate or make invitations into that process.
mm. You know, when you were describing earlier what the divine masculine means to you, and you said, about being a sacred container, I had never thought of that part of me being a divine masculine element, because that is something that I do for everybody in my life. And it actually feels really beautiful to think of that as a gift from the masculine, that I can do that for people.
Totally is.
It's kind of blown my mind a little.
Yeah, it totally is. And that's so beautiful that you can see that and claim that for yourself now.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's such a powerful space to hold for other people. It's not about fixing, changing, doing anything. It's just about providing safety, which most of us never had,
Mm.
to allow the process to unfold.
Yeah.
You know, and so why it's so important for us to do our own work is because if we're resolving our own anger, then if we see someone that's extremely angry, we actually have the space within us to go towards it. Otherwise, if we're still dealing with it here, and that's not to say you have to be perfect, we're going to step in and we're going to combust too. Then you're going to have two angry people just like ready to duke it out,
Yes.
you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
It's just more encouragement to really look after yourself. If you know, if people need more of that, then because I really feel when we do healing work for ourselves, we're doing healing work for the world.
yeah.
And sometimes that can be your reason, if it feels too self-indulgent or whatever, to give yourself that time to think about it in terms of impact on the planet.
Yeah.
Might be the tipping point.
All we have to do is be present to our emotional body and just listen and pay attention and honor it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how we're all going to like heal this thing, you know,
Yeah.
together, men and women. Um,
Mm.
yeah. So the more we can have awareness of our own judgments, our own shaming, our own self-criticism, the
Mm.
own self-hatred we projected ourselves, like the more we can have awareness and compassion for that part of ourselves, which I call the shadow part of ourselves,
Yeah.
in moments of true discomfort, of moments of true pain, the easier this is all going to be. And I'm not even attached to that's ever going to end, you know, like that
Yeah.
we're one day going to be free of that and, you know, it's going to be all light. I don't know. I don't necessarily see it going that way for myself. I'm pretty like at this point pretty content with just accepting that suffering is a natural part of life, at least for now. So,
And that it's showing us something. It has a purpose. It's not just because, suck shit, life is bad. It's there to offer us something, right?
oh my gosh, something so juicy that you can't even imagine. Like the stuff that like lights you up about life,
Mm.
you know? I had so much resentment and anger at one point when we were in Mackenzie and I were in Peru that again I was just like yelling. And she was working with me and we were working together and finally it became so clear that this had nothing to do with Mackenzie.
Mm.
And I was like, okay, then I'm going to be with this, you know? So just being with the emotion and letting it reveal to me what it is. And what it revealed to me was I have held so much resentment towards my own mother,
Mm.
and therefore the source of feminine for me, that I was projecting and playing that out in my romantic union with Mackenzie.
Mm.
And, you know, there were things that happened in my life that justified me feeling that resentment. And I went to all these personal and professional development courses where I got it and thought I
Yeah.
understood it and healed it, but it
Yeah.
was still in my body.
Mm.
So in acknowledging that and seeing that and weeping for hours and then calling my mom and like really just being really forthcoming and honest about the resentment that was still there for me. It was like, it was it. And after that, why that's important is because what became available for me was a whole new ability to receive my beloved in our relationship, to see her for who she really is rather than through the lens of who my mother used to be.
Mm.
I actually got to receive her in her brilliance, in her wisdom, in her inspiration. And therefore, like, I was lit up by that. I was the one receiving it. I was like, whoa, how have I been missing out on this the whole time? And then I'm telling her how amazing she is, and she's receiving it, and like our relationship is just going like this. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So by taking care of um, that feeling for yourself, you were able to open up another level of connection and sort of deep union with another person.
Yeah, intimacy and
Mm.
receptivity. Mhm.
Yeah, yeah. So I'd like to just open the floor for you if there's anything that is really hot for you that you're channeling or you would like to share in this moment. Like you said, there's something about going first, and I honor you so much for doing that. And I'd just like to give you some space if there's something that you wanted to share.
Yeah, I mean, for the men that are listening, just that it's not only okay to feel, but it's actually how you were made to be. You were made to have a feminine part of you that's so connected to life that you can walk into a room and know how everybody's feeling, and that's a gift. You were made to be so connected to your own emotional body that when things arise for you, you can seek and find the wisdom in that. And so it's really, the feminine is not weakness. It's actually extreme strength. And the more that we as men can embrace that for ourselves, the more free we're going to be to actually stand in our true masculinity and express it.
Mm-hmm.
And the more free we're going to be to actually know, at least in some sense, what it's like to be in a woman's body, and therefore honor that process, honor our beloveds, honor our sisters, honor our mothers, honor our friends. And I feel like that's where we are now. I feel like the divine feminine is like running wild in the best way.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm speaking about the communities that I know of. I know in lots of places in the world, it's not that way.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel in my heart that the divine feminine is running wild. They have been set free, and they're like, you know what? If you're coming with us or not, it doesn't really matter. We're going.
Yeah.
This is where we're going. And now the divine masculine is rising to meet her.
Mm.
And in that, there is going to be tremendous healing that happens between these two poles.
Mm.
And that's going to have to look like men being responsible for the pain and hurt that their beloveds and the women in their life are feeling. And not because it's your fault or you're the one to blame. We all have our part in all of this.
Mm-hmm.
But you're just going to shift your perspective and recognize that you're the one to reconcile it for no other reason than because you can. And because that's what you came here to do.
Mm-hmm.
And you're going to choose that. Because that's what's going to ignite your own heart.
Mm-hmm.
And have you feel connected and aligned with your own purpose. So, yeah, step one is just stop running away from it and start leaning in and moving towards it. And it's all happening, it's all happening. It's just happening. So, yeah, that's what's on my heart, at least for now.
Thank you so much for that.
And for the women and for the divine feminine, just deep honor and deep respect for holding yourselves and holding us for so long. And for trusting even when you were scared and even when you didn't really know if it was ever going to happen. That deep trust and that continual self-compassion and self-love that you showed to yourself. In the space that you held for us to rise to meet you. It's like the only reason the masculine is rising now is because the feminine is holding space for it. And it's actually happened first through women, through the feminine. And so I'm just deeply honoring you for whatever that's looked like for you and whatever pain you have felt along that journey, and promising that it's all going to be reconciled in the most beautiful way, and that the prophecies will be fulfilled, and that we are going to fly together as the eagle and the condor. And that's the way this is going to go. And for men like me that are out there that have had this passion ignited in their hearts that like keeps us up at night, like it's up to us to pass that along, to spread that wildfire, to ignite that kind of remembrance in every heart, especially in every man's heart. So
Mm, thank you.
Absolutely.
I would love to share for any women listening who don't have a sense of what this might feel like yet. My experience with Michael in last year, we sat in cacao ceremony together, and to be honest, Michael, that was the first time I think I actually felt held by the masculine. And what that meant was that I could be completely vulnerable without fear of judgment, because I'm not really afraid of judgment from women, because I know we all kind of get it. We're all emotional and it's part of our story. But I would definitely hold back on genuine emotion and truth around men, because I realize now I didn't feel safe to do that.
Yeah.
And in that ceremony, your beautiful self and our friend Tully, made it so I felt held by a strength, and I'd never experienced that before from a man. And it really gives me so much hope for the future, because I've felt it myself. And the fact that you're willing to take leadership on that really gives me encouragement for the future. So I see you and I honor you, and I thank you so much for that. And, you know, myself and Conscious Living Project, we want to help in any way that we can, because we can see how important this is for the healing of the world, for all of us.
Yeah.
So I think this is probably just the beginning of our connection and our work together. And that's really exciting. So thank you.
Thank you for that acknowledgement. Just really receiving that, and yeah, just to feel that's such a big thing, to know that was the first time that you genuinely felt safe and the masculine's presence that's everything to me. So I'm just extremely grateful and receiving that fully.
Until you've felt it, you don't really know what's possible, I guess.
Yeah. But that's what's coming.
Yeah.
The rapture, yeah, it's coming. That's what's there for me, is like when I tap into the passion and burning fire in my heart, I'm like, oh my gosh, the most unbelievable rapture is coming. None of us have any idea, like the intense unconditional love we're about to experience.
Yes, I really feel that too. But now I feel like we're doing it together, because I could absolutely feel the divine feminine rising, and knowing that she is incredibly powerful. Like you said, fierce compassion. And feel that 100%. But at some point it felt like a warrior goddess, but out on her own. And now I'm starting to feel that isn't the case, that we're going to do it together. We're going to run together.
Yeah.
And that feels very whole, very complete.
Yeah, we are.
Yeah. Okay, well, let's wrap there. If you guys are interested to find out more about what Michael is doing, he has a website, HuManity.media.co. And for men especially, I can't recommend more to jump on a program with him. If you do have that willingness and you'd like to go there with some other men, I couldn't recommend it more. And for women who know men, to keep them in mind. And I think also to be open to having really compassionate discussions around these topics that can hurt us. I encourage you to do that, and we'll keep doing that too, so that we can keep on running together.
Absolutely. Yeah, just honoring you tremendously. Thank you so much for having me in your space and this sacred container, and for the work that you're doing to share your love and your purpose and your wisdom with the world. Just honoring you deeply and immensely, and so excited for this to get shared and to see what becomes of it.
Absolutely. Okay, thank you so much. Talk to you soon.
Yeah, great.
Bye.